Hello, everyone, and welcome to our series on tapping into giving. I'm Tanya Pinto, and it is my pleasure to welcome Mara Riemer here today. She is a partner with the Brunswick Group, and I had the great pleasure of meeting Mara through connections in the market research industry, meeting with wonderful women in the industry, and we connected right away. And it's going to be so exciting to talk to Mara about all her interesting views on giving and philanthropy. So welcome, Mara.
Thank you. It's so good to see you today.
And Mara, I wanted to start by asking you to say just a little bit about yourself and what you do at the Brunswick Group, because I think people would find it really, really interesting.
Sure. So I'm a partner here and I lead our insight functions. So we do a lot of the research that helps guide the advice we give to clients. And that advice is typically around things that are considered critical issues and strategic communications. So it's all the things that companies say and do about themselves and their role in the world. And sometimes those issues can be ranging from their take on the environment to just the kinds of products and their employee practices and all of those kinds of things. It's really, really interesting work that we do here.
That's awesome. And you're based in DC now. We'd met in Dallas.
That's right. Yes. So I am a part of our DC office. Me and my family live in Maryland, just across the border there. And it has been really lovely. We moved here about a year and a half ago.
That's awesome. So, Mara, when you think about giving and your own sort of personal journey, what are some of the causes that you are passionate about?
A lot of the causes that I'm passionate about are somewhat similar to your cause. I think a lot about children and the way they start off in this world. I think a lot about women and girls and how their role in society, particularly around the world, is so important for themselves, for societies, and all of those really kind of integrated, connected things in this world.
Yeah, I mean, I think with baaldan, one of the principles that I've had is sort of catching a child early in life. And the more that we can do, with preschool education, with really good nutrition in those early years, helps to stave off potential problems later in life. So I think those early childhood years is something I'm also really passionate about, even within the cover of baaldan, which helps, a lot of different kinds of children in many different places.
Completely. Yeah, I totally agree. One of the things that I was thinking about and sharing with you for our conversation today that really shaped some of the way I think about that is an experience I had when I had my son, who is now 6. He was born with a congenital defect. He had to have surgery and very early in his life. And we spent a lot of time in the NICU. And it was so striking to look across at these babies in the NICU, all of whom were getting of exceptional care in this wonderful hospital in Dallas, Texas. But seeing and talking to some of the families and the different experiences that they were having in their lives and knowing the different lives these kids would go home to. So they're all starting off in the same place with the same level of wonderful care because they needed extra care. But then that was all going to diverge when we all went home. And that was just really striking to me at that point in my life. And again, just going back to the things I feel passionate about, it's the, let's get everyone off to a good start in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think what you said, even about early childhood healthcare, there are so many things that can go wrong, right? Early in a child's life. And again, if you don't have those interventions, if you don't have the right medical care at the right time, it can really create sometimes lifelong problems. And so I think investing in causes like that is also really, really important. When you think about how to make an impact, so let's say you're giving your time or your money to an organization, how do you look at that? Like, how do you evaluate an organization?
I think there's a lot of great resources out there that do a lot of the research for us, that take a look at what percentage of a charitable organization's giving or funds go toward direct impact types of endeavors, the way that an organization is run, how big it is. There are so many elements out there that are pretty easy to Google these days, which I'm really grateful for. I also think just going back to, where we met, which is in the professional world. I think it's great that so many companies and organizations are putting charity really high on their list. So Brunswick does quite a bit in the charitable realm. So when a world event happens, whether it's war or a natural disaster, we oftentimes will get an email from our people department that says, we have picked 3 charities that we think are really good at making an impact for this particular event. Pick which one you want to give to. We'll match up to whatever amount of dollars. So I really like over the years what I've seen a lot of companies doing, which is really taking that and saying, hey, let's figure out what the good causes are and give that in a menu to employees, and encourage and nudge that kind of giving.
Yeah, they take the fatigue out of it too, because there's so many different choices out there. And I think also when companies come together and the employees come together, they can also raise a lot more money, right? For one, than everyone just doing their own disparate thing. So it definitely has more impact. Were there any things that from your childhood, like how did you learn to give? How did you learn to know that was important?
Yeah. So I grew up in a pretty modest working class family. And I'm sure you hear this frequently, that even though we didn't have a lot of extra money, it was just something that we were taught that that's important to do. It certainly started off in the church that I went to growing up, where there were always different kinds of causes. And a lot of times it was local families who just needed some extra help because of an event in their lives. And our family, again, just whether or not we had a lot of extra money, it was something that we made sure that we always contributed to.
And I'm curious, when you did that, when you were little, was it something that your parents sort of modeled? Did they encourage it? Did you get together as a family and say, oh, okay, we're going to do this? Or how did it come about?
It's interesting. I don't know that in my growing up that we talked a lot about it. It was just an observation that I saw them do. But I will say another thing that, again, maybe others who are parents today have talked to you about this. When we started thinking about teaching our kids about money, and we looked into my husband and I looked into different ways of doing that. There's a model that's pretty common, which is you create the jars, and it's have some money to spend, have some money to save, and have some money to give. And so we've done that with our kids today. So when they get their little allowances or money from their birthdays, gifts and that sort of thing, they have their jars, and they're very serious about their gift jar, which makes me feel very proud. And they think a lot about what they want to give their money to. And we do as a family think about, particularly at the holidays, what kinds of charities are we going to pick to give some of our money to.
That's great. So you not just are modeling the behavior, but you're giving them some sort of framework, a little tool like the jar to keep it conscious in their mind. This is an important part of how to kind of think about life. When you think about, all the different competing causes there are, and we talked a little bit about impact, not just personally and professionally, but like, where do you see that there could be even more impact as, a community of women, a community of professionals? Like, how can we make more of a difference with everything that's going on, even in this post-COVID world?
Yeah. I mean, I think you said the word very briefly earlier, but you talked about time. And that, I think, is such an important thing to think about when we're evaluating how we give back. So there's obviously a monetary element that can be so helpful and that we absolutely need in philanthropy. And then for those of us who are professional women, no matter how we came up through, finding ways to give back from a professional standpoint, I think is really important. So for me, over the years, I've oftentimes gotten involved with local colleges or universities, often ones that either I've been part of or where we recruit from, and take part in things like mentoring programs, and even just small things like helping out with resume reviews for students who don't have the resources to have those kinds of things done for them in a paid way. I think things like that can be relatively low lift can be really helpful and impactful as we think about our time and efforts.
I love that. And you're using a skill that you have just to benefit others. And that little bit of service, that little bit of time would definitely make a big difference, much more so than maybe even writing a check.
Right.
That's great. When somebody is about to finish school, so let's say there's a young woman out there right now who's about to finish their degree and go out into the world, what advice would you give them when it comes to thinking about giving, making a difference, making an impact?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say, there's a lot in that stage in one's life where you are very inward focused, and there's a lot of time and effort they have to put into job searching and making that good appearance at your first job and ensuring people know that you're a hard worker. I would say maybe a couple of things. One is just making sure that as you get those first jobs, knowing what the opportunities are that your company provides for give back. I mean, a lot of companies now have give back days and volunteer opportunities, maybe even thinking about ways as we look at a lot of the next gen efforts that companies do, getting involved with that and making it something where you organize a volunteer day within your work. Has so many benefits, both to whatever volunteer organization you give to and to make connections at work and with your coworkers. And so I think things like that, being creative, because early on you might not have a lot of extra dollars. What are the things that you can do with your time and your skills, that sort of thing?
Yeah, and you mentioned something that was also advice that was given to me, which was make connections.
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes, you don't have a lot of disposable income at that stage in life, but you can join a group, you can join a board, you can become a volunteer, and those connections can end up being lifelong friends and, and helping as well.
Yeah.
Your job is so interesting at Brunswick, and I know you deal with a lot of different types of companies and different crises and different things that are happening all the time. What are some of the things that right now are inspiring you, motivating you? What are things that, you're looking at that give you joy and light you up?
Well, from a work perspective, I feel like there's a lot of really excellent intent that's leading to action in the realm of taking CSR programs from what used to be writing a few checks to really robust programmatic things where companies are thinking about kind of similar to what we talked about on a personal level. What is it that they do in the world, and how do they link that and connect that to something that they can do that's good for the world? So I just feel like over the past several years, I've seen so many examples of companies going from CSR as a surface level press release to CSR as a really deeply embedded part of the business they do and what they do. And with that, thinking about the wider range of stakeholders that they have. So, we've all heard things about, going beyond just your shareholders. And I really think that so many leaders in business today have completely embraced that idea of their employees, their communities that they exist in, and really caring about making a difference where they operate.
That totally resonates with me. I mean, I was in advertising for many years and consulting, and sort of in the early days of cause marketing, I remember how, sometimes companies would say, well, we like that cause. Let's just put the logo, let's just put the logo or the symbol on our materials or on our merchandise. And it was just like checking the box and almost like cause washing. And I have really seen it evolve. And now when I meet with companies and I am sort of out and about in the world, I truly do see that the CSR, that corporate social responsibility, is very deeply embedded in company values and how they hire and how they catalyze their employees. It's really, really evolved in recent years, which is amazing to see. And in many ways, it's also how people are choosing brands too.
Yes.
Based on what their values are, and those values align with where those brands are also making those charitable investments as well. So I think that's really amazing that you're seeing that too, and even professionally.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really great to see. And it really does bring a lot more just personal motivation to show up and do the good work for the clients that we have at Brunswick, and to see the actual impact is really great. We also work with several large philanthropic organizations, helping them with their communication strategies and donor strategies. And again, just the amount of enthusiasm and effort and impact that's able to be made in some of these large institutions is really just great to see.
Yeah. And also I will also say, you know, baaldan being a very small charity, there's also ways that people like you have made an impact through making connections, through just building that community, you know, different things that we've done in terms of cascading messages or social media. So I think it can even work for a small organization like baaldan as well as a big organization. I think the principles are very similar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even I would say the trend in large charitable or, you know, big philanthropies finding ways to distribute their wealth through to small organizations has also become, you know, definitely on an upward trended path. So hopefully that continues as well.
I hope so too. It's one of my passion areas, which is I really love investing in the grassroots organizations, the ones that are sort of underfunded, usually run by women, you know, that with those women entrepreneurs in the communities that started that little school or started that project for street children to feed them after school and keep them out of trouble. So I really do think that funding is needed at all levels, at scale for infrastructure, at the mid-level, and then also at the grassroots level to kind of help those smaller people doing that really hard work, you
That's
know,
right.
one-on-one and with small groups of children and in their little communities, helping kind of foster that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So anyway, Mara, well, is there anything else that you'd like to mention we haven't talked about today?
Oh my goodness. Well, I will just say I applaud you and all of your efforts in the work that you do for your charity. It's clearly incredibly well run, incredibly just well done. And so all of the effort, I don't know how often you get thanks, but hopefully today I will say thanks for all that you do and for all the people that you serve.
Wow. Well, thank you. That meant a lot to me. And thank you so much. It has just been amazing to connect with you and all the wonderful women that we are a part of in our little community of research. So thank you for your time and your energy, and keep doing great things, not just with Brunswick, but with your kids too. Top up their little giving jars. It's really great to see. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mara.
Bye.